thank you all for coming out today for the headstone dedication for the 11th Kansas here. My name is Nick Whips, and I'm the recreation manager for the city of Caspar, and one of my areas of oversight is the fort. And I can tell you, during my time, I know the countless hours that the great individuals here at the fort, Rick and Michelle and Ann and Joanna and the rest of the Fort Caspar Museum Association puts into preserving the rich history of our community. And without them, yes, please, big round of applause. It's the countless hours and the thankless work to do that gives us the opportunity to preserve that history for generations to come, and it is such a valuable asset here, and I'm just so appreciative for them. And what we're going to do today is we're going to have some people come up and talk. Joanna's going to come up and talk about the project here and what they've been doing and give you some historical context, and we're going to move through this. But once again, I just want to thank you all for coming, and I want to bring up Joanna Wickman to talk about the project. Come on up.
Should have brought a box to stand on here. Like Nick said, welcome. Thank you so much for coming. Today we're here to honor 9 fallen soldiers of the 11th Kansas Volunteer Cavalry. These 9 headstones just to my right here. And I'm just going to read their names real quickly for you. Private William T. Bonwell, Private Silas Henshaw, Private Adam Culp, Private James A. Porter, Private George McDonald, Private George Camp, Private Sebastian Nehring, Private Alexander York, and Private George Glidden. To give you some history of the 11th Kansas, they were originally formed in August of 1862 as an infantry regiment. They fought in Civil War battles like the Battle of Prairie Grove in Arkansas, and were later converted to a cavalry unit in 1863. And for most of their military service, they fought what we would consider guerrilla warfare. They were on the border between Missouri, Arkansas, Kansas, fighting pro-slavery bushwhackers. So this is very different than what we typically think of with Civil War battles, with one army marching out this way and another army marching out and meeting in the middle. Now, they did have battles like that. One of the largest ones they were involved in was called the Battle of Westport, and historians sometimes refer to it as the Gettysburg of the West. In that battle, the 11th Kansas Cavalry was on the extreme flank of the Union Army, and the Confederate Army, led by General Sterling Price, was making a push into Kansas. The 11th Kansas led a dismounted cavalry charge uphill to the Confederate Army that was entrenched behind a stone wall, and they were successful. And that stopped the Confederate Army from sweeping into Kansas. Now, these men signed enlistments to fight in the Civil War to preserve the Union. And for many of them, their enlistments were 3 years or duration of the war. The Civil War ended in April of 1865. They should go home, right? No, they got sent here. They were sent here, and they arrived here in April of 1865. Their job was to protect Fort Caspar, then known as Platte Bridge Station, and the smaller telegraph outposts along the route. And in the course of their service, which was from April to August is when they started heading back to Fort Leavenworth, Kansas to be mustered out, they lost a number of soldiers. These are just some of them. If you're familiar with the Red Buttes Commemorative Cemetery just out past Paradise Valley, there's another 22 headstones there for members of the 11th Kansas. The 11th Kansas, far and wide, most of their casualties here were combat related, versus many of the other regiments lost soldiers to disease, freezing, those kinds of things. This project here is part of the Lest We Forget Commemorative Cemetery. These headstones are cenotaph headstones. So what that means is there are no bodies directly under these headstones. Now, in this hill directly behind me, there are soldiers buried there. There are 5 unknown soldiers buried in that hill, and 1 unidentified woman who is likely a traveler on the Oregon Trail, an immigrant who died and was buried here at the fort. The reason that we're putting all this effort into these cenotaph headstones is because for these soldiers, they don't have a headstone. Their bodies have not been recovered. There is no place for their family to go and pay respects. There's no place to lay flowers. There's no place to put a wreath at Christmas time with Wreaths Across America. Until now. These 11th Kansas headstones are just the first ones in our series. These 11th Ohio ones were placed in the 1970s, and that's really kind of what started this project. We're going to be adding soldiers from the 6th West Virginia Cavalry. That's our next phase. Now, the 6th West Virginia had soldiers who came out here who survived Andersonville, which, if you're familiar with Civil War history, Andersonville was a notorious prisoner of war camp in the South. The only man executed for war crimes during the Civil War was the commandant of Andersonville. So if you can imagine surviving that experience, coming out here and dying out here. Following that is the 6th Michigan Cavalry. The 6th Michigan Cavalry fought at the Battle of Gettysburg under General George Armstrong Custer. They were in the same situation as the 6th West Virginia and the 11th Kansas. They signed enlistments for the duration of the war, and instead they got sent out here when it ended. After the 6th Michigan is the 6th U.S. Infantry, the 18th U.S. Infantry, the 7th Iowa Cavalry, and an additional 18 headstones for the 11th Ohio Volunteer Cavalry. When this project is complete, instead of the 20 headstones that you see behind me here, there will be 62 headstones going all along this direction. It will be an incredible, poignant reminder of the human cost of service here at this fort. Once the headstones are installed, there'll be a walkway, a reflection bench, and interpretive signage to explain the history of these regiments, what this project is, and what this means to our city and our state. This is an ambitious project, which I am very well aware of. When I started this project 2 years ago, I knew we'd be adding headstones. I had no idea we would be adding so many. I don't think any of us did. I know Rick didn't. It's just been an incredible project to research all of these soldiers and find out how many have been lost to history. This project, when it's all said and done, will cost us about $45,000. Now, we are breaking this into sections. We're doing it regiment by regiment. That's how you accomplish big goals, one step at a time, right? So we've come this far with support from our local community. We've had support from Kansas, families, the Wyoming Veterans Commission, different organizations, but we can't continue this without your support. Any help you can provide is much appreciated. No amount is too small. No offer of help is too small. Together we can complete this project, which is what it desperately needs. The important thing looking at this is that it has to be finished. No man is left behind. We have to get all of them here, all of them equally remembered, all of them deserve headstones. I want to remind everybody that after the service, please go inside the museum. We have a special exhibit set up on Private William Bonwell. Private Bonwell was killed June 3rd of 1865 in a skirmish with Native Americans. Before he was killed, he started writing a letter home to his mother. He never got a chance to finish that letter. It's on exhibit in the museum along with a tintype. So I encourage you to please go inside the museum, take a look at that special case that's just up for today's program. Also take a look at the other exhibits on the history of the fort, the regiments here, and please go out and visit the fort buildings and kind of learn a little bit more about what their life was like here. And I am the self-proclaimed 11th Kansas history nerd. I've been researching them for about a decade. So if you have any questions about the 11th Kansas, their service out here, any of these soldiers, please come find me. I'm happy to visit with you and answer any questions that you may have. And thank you again for coming.
Thank you, Joanna. And I would probably share the sentiments of everybody else here. Thank you for casting a vision for the future, and I can't wait to see this to the finish line. It's going to be absolutely amazing. The next individual I want to call up is Elizabeth Jennings. She's the dependent of Private Adam Culp. So come on up, Elizabeth.
Yeah, I see why you said you needed a stool. Well, thank you for being here today. This means a lot to me and my family, especially my dad. Unfortunately, he passed 9 years ago, but I know that he would be so honored and grateful to Fort Caspar and everyone involved to making this happen. Before my dad died, he tried so hard to get something done to honor his great-great-uncle, Adam Culp. Adam was part of the 11th Kansas Volunteer Cavalry and was stationed here at Platte Bridge Station. He was joined by his brother, Francis, who is my great-great-grandfather, who survived, while Adam was brutally killed by the Indians. This headstone project was headed by Joanna Wickman, and through a funny story of fate, brought me and my family here today. My husband and I were out walking, and we ran into Joanna's sister, who is an old friend of one of my daughters. We started talking, and she mentioned that she was working with Joanna on this headstone project to honor soldiers killed at Platte Bridge Station. I told her how I actually have an ancestor who was killed there, and she said Joanna is going to be so excited to have a descendant who lives right here in Caspar. Then, through emails and a lot of planning, Joanna got the other 11th Kansas descendants together last summer for a reunion full of history and community. It was a wonderful experience. Thank you to all at Fort Caspar for your dedication to making this happen. And thank you to Joanna for all you have done, but specifically for caring. Adam Culp isn't just some dead relative. He is part of history, and that means more than I think most people will ever understand. Here in the U.S. and the great state of Wyoming, we honor our fallen comrades. And I'm so thankful to Fort Caspar for honoring our fallen 11th Kansas Volunteer Cavalry ancestors today. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I next want to bring up Colton Sasser to say a few words. Come on up, Colton.
How's everyone doing? It's a great honor to be here. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Colton Sasser. Lived in Caspar my entire life. I joined the military shortly after high school and deployed over to Afghanistan. While I was in Afghanistan, I ran over an IED and was sent back home pretty quick. But one of the things that really to this day is touched me is the community that embraced me, that I call home here in Caspar. When I first came back, I was welcomed at the airport with literally hundreds of people, and they even everyone drove me to my house, and I was very touched by how important military service is for the great state of Wyoming, and especially the community that I call home, Caspar. So when Nick always throws my name in the hat here to come speak to these things, I'm always willing to do it, just because I know that the military, again, is very important, to us in Caspar. Coincidentally, I always think back to, why do people join the military, and there's lots of different reasons, but I think one of the big ones that I had seen is it's always your prior family members that served in Vietnam or World War II, and my dad, he was a Vietnam veteran, and he's no longer with us, but military history is important to him too. He actually, when he got out of Vietnam, him and another Vietnam veteran started a business, a construction company here in town, and they actually named it Caspar after Caspar Collins. So we have a connection to this place, and I think it's one of the most important things that we can do is to honor the fallen. And I wish these soldiers here that served here on this this fort, if they would have known what their sacrifice meant, and look at the beautiful community that we now call home. It took long enough for us to just get them some headstones, but we got to remember what their sacrifice, meant to us. It's funny. I think we drive by this place, every day, and I think a lot of people in this community don't know how important, these grounds are. I mean, as Joanna pointed out, we've got soldiers that are buried right behind us. This is sacred ground. You think about all of the conflicts and the wars that our country has fought. I was in Afghanistan, and the pullout on that whole thing, was very tough as a veteran. Well, their time was different here, but again, this beautiful community that we call home now, their sacrifice meant something. And it doesn't matter what conflict you're in, it's an important thing, and you take the politics out of it. And you ask any veteran that's ever served, you don't. It's not the orders. It's the person next to you. That's what you're truly serving for. That's who you're protecting. And I know these soldiers, fought that way and did the same thing. I've come here and I've sat and I've heard Joanna talk about this stuff, and all the staff here at the museum, at the fort, and the passion that they have for this place. I sat and listened to Joanna speak to what she pointed out earlier. Is these soldiers got orders that they thought it was just going to end, and guess what? The government kept sending them and kept sending them. I said, man, the government doesn't change, huh? It's so, however long it took us long enough to do this, and I think what they're doing is important. And I just ask that we get out in the community and get people behind this thing, and we get this thing accomplished. I think it's very important that we continue the mission. It's already taken over 160 something odd years, and there's still work to be done. And I just ask that we all get behind it and support it, and make sure people in the community know the rich history here, because I just think there's a lot that don't. And so I just want to thank everyone for having me, and I appreciate what you guys are doing here, and I think it's very important work. And I will back you however I can, moving forward to get this done. So thank you, everyone. I appreciate it. Have a good day.
With that, I want to bring up our folks to start our military honors.
I was 2012. Yes, sir.
Have to reset.
With you.
Honor detail. We, the members of the United States Army, personnel from Fort Caspar, and members of the Natrona County United Veterans Council, are here assembled to pay a tribute of lasting respect to our departed comrades. When the call of our country was heard, our comrades answered. Self was forgotten in the cause of the greater good. As brave men, they marched away with an abiding faith in their God, their country, and their flag. The red of our country's flag was made redder by their heroism. The white more stainlessly pure by the motives which impelled them. And in the starry field of our nation's banner, the blue has been glorified by the service they've given for American ideals. The chaplain will lead us in prayer.
Let us pray. O God, Father of us all, we here extend these final earthly tributes to our beloved comrades. Accept our prayers in behalf of the servants departed. Prayers of a grateful nation for our departed comrades, who answered the blare of the bugles, the ruffle of the drums, and whose glory will never fade. Welcome them to thy house to rest in peace. Look with mercy upon the loved ones bereaved by their passing. Comfort and console them through thine own tenderness. These things we ask humbly in thy name. Amen.
Firing detail. At this time, I would like to caution you there will be 3 rifle volleys. I would like to request that any individual who has ever worn the uniform of the Armed Forces of the United States of America to please stand and help us honor our comrades while we do the firing detail and taps. And it is permissible to render the hand salute even though you're not in uniform. Hand salute!
Ready, aim. Right face. Fort Brazil on.
Two. Please be seated. This banner of love and devotion now being folded is a living memorial of the courageous thoughts of our comrades, the ones you came here to honor this day. The blue field represents the sky that overlooks our land and denotes the watchfulness of God the Eternal. The red stripes tell us of the blood, sweat, and tears that have been offered and conquered by our comrades' devotion to the responsible freedoms of our country. This is the 11th Cavalry's flag. This is our spiritual heritage. Receive it with the tears of our minds and the faith of our hearts. Detail, post. It worked well.
That will conclude our dedication ceremony today. I would encourage everybody to stick around and go to the fort and check out the special exhibit. Please find Rick or Joanna or Anne or Michelle. They are a wealth of knowledge, and I can tell you that you will learn so much just by asking questions, and I've learned a ton. So please stick around, and thank you all for coming out today. Have a good one.
Mechanically challenged. Are you mechanically challenged? Is that true?